This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
We're the 24th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft. The Minnesota Vikings select Donovan Jackson, guard, Ohio State.
Welcome back. PA is out for the final hour. The Vikings chose Donovan Jackson, guard, Ohio State. You probably already know that. Pick number 24. They do not have another pick for another 70 picks, almost 70.
Number 97.
97
We're
away.
in FOMO territory. Friday FOMO as we watch some names drop off the board here.
I've got a couple of guys that I've got circled that I'm interested in. I want to get the reactions with my Fantasy Football Weekly co-host. That is Thor Nystrom. I think did you already dial him up? There he is. Hi, Thor.
Hey, Charch, how you doing?
Good. Nice to talk to you again. And also, we'll be talking again in a few hours as we go through Fantasy Football Weekly, and we'll break down all of the fantasy relevant players that were taken in the first round, of which there were several. But let's focus this conversation on the Vikings and Donovan Jackson. Not somebody that we saw pegged to Minnesota a lot. So I think for a lot of our listeners, we're still getting up to speed on Donovan Jackson. Tell me what you know about him, what you like, what worries you.
I really like the pick. In my opinion, Donovan Jackson was the best pure guard in this class above Tyler Bucker, if we're not considering Gray Zabel a guard. Yeah, I liked him more. Donovan Jackson, former 5-star recruit, 3-year starter at Ohio State. Love his combination of length, longest wingspan of all interior offensive lineman prospects that you would have graded top 5 rounds, and power in an athletic package. That kid, 6'4", 315 pounds, 96 percentile size adjusted athlete. This pre-draft process, he is a hammer in the run game. This guy is going to improve your run game immediately. It is obvious that Donovan Jackson is going to be the day one starter at left guard, completing the insane transformation of that interior offensive line this offseason. The thing that I would point to with Donovan Jackson about his football character dash integrity, this season, Josh Simmons, the left tackle for Ohio State, he gets injured for the season against Oregon in October. The backup left tackle for Ohio State badly struggled the next 2 games to the point where it was devolving the whole offense. The season hung in the balance for the Buckeyes.
Yeah.
Donovan Jackson agreed on the fly to kick from left guard to left tackle to button up the blind side for that Buckeyes team. They go on to win the national title. The Buckeyes would not have won the national title if Donovan Jackson hadn't agreed to that and then hadn't played stellar football at left tackle. Again, on the fly. In the college football playoff, he shut down James Pierce over those 4 games. I think he gave up two pressures over those 4 games. Well, one of the dates was against James Pierce. Really like his game inside. Again, the length, the power, the athleticism. And Charch, last thing I'd say about this, some people were referring to this as a reach, right? Because they see on big boards, including mine. I think I had Donovan Jackson 30th on mine, and I see some people being like, "Oh, he was in the 30s on some of these different big boards."
Yeah,
it wasn't a reach though. The offensive line environment that we were in last night, everyone was getting pulled up there from the offensive line group. Donovan Jackson was your last stop at the train station if you wanted that immediate starter at left guard. And I could even extend this to say, if you wanted an immediate impact player on either side of the ball in the trenches, Derek Harmon had gone a few picks before that to Pittsburgh.
Right.
He was your 4th of 4 consensus top 4 IDLs. Derek Harmon absolutely would have been in play at 24 had he gotten there, but he didn't get there either. Of course, when Gray Zabel went to Seattle a little bit before that, that was the last offensive lineman before Donovan Jackson that you could have immediately plugged into left guard. So to get the immediate starter guy, they had to pop Jackson there. They did, and I don't think it's a reach.
I think Viking fans love to hear that. That's Thor Nystrom. You can follow Thor on Twitter at ThorKU. You can also see his work at fantasylife.com. What I loved about Donovan Jackson, when I went back, I looked at about 100 plays last night after the draft. I had only lightly looked at him, honestly, before this because I didn't think that he was going to be the Vikings selection at 24. What I really liked, when they threw unique looks at him through stunts or movement, he picked all that up. His head is on a swivel. The vision's really good. He's really smart, and he didn't get fooled by any of those plays, Thor.
I agree with that. Yeah. And with that length that he has, like the combination that he has of the length and the strength, it allows you to play a different way where you can come back on that kind of stuff. And you mentioned the cleverness that he has as well.
Yeah.
But he has a little bit of a margin for error for that. And he also has that ability to quickly adjust. He gets good depth there in pass pro and uses that length, again, to keep guys out of his kitchen, out of his pads. It's really difficult to get by Donovan Jackson in pass pro when he's on the inside. And I couldn't believe how well he did in pass pro. Again, on the boundary, down the stretch there against these murder row defenses that Ohio State was playing down the stretch. Very, very impressive. And this guy projects to be a long-term awesome starter at guard in the NFL. And you even have the break glass in case of emergency tackle utility there as well that we saw last year.
Yeah, he had to go up against Abdul Carter, had to go up against James Pierce, both first-rounders last night when he was playing tackle. But obviously prefer him at guard. But you almost wonder if it turns out that Christian Darrisaw is not ready for week 1, maybe Donovan Jackson is there. Maybe they ultimately decide to start him there. I don't think that's likely how it's going to work out, but I guess that would be a possibility if you needed it.
We know that he is willing, don't we, Charch?
Right. Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
This guy, the most important thing the most important data point that you give the NFL in your evaluation that you submit to them, it's your games in your final season of college, right? And especially the ones down the stretch. You were mentioning the competition that he was facing there. To do that again on the fly it could have gone the other way. You could have acquitted yourself poorly.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone would have held it against him if he's like, no, I'm good. I'm going to close out the season at left guard. He did it for the team and he excelled. And in part is the reason why he's a first round pick.
I'm going to give you a player that I'm interested as a potential pick for the Vikings in their next selection, 97 third round. And then I would like you to give me one as well. And then tell me if you think I'm stupid for being interested in Jalen Noel, the Iowa State slot receiver. Does he move the needle for you as a possible pick for the Vikings there? I really like that kid. I love the separation. I love the long strides. I think your comp for him was Khalil Shakir, and I love Khalil Shakir.
I do. Yeah, no, that if he got there, absolutely. I would turn that card in really quick. My question would be more if he does.
Yeah.
I love Jalen Noel. I have him as a second rounder on my board. No,
wow.
He's going tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'll be very curious to see, where he ends up going. I'm guessing it will be round 3 because the NFL can be punitive with those shorter guys that are the pure slots like Noel is.
Yep.
But Noel's going to be a very good starting slot in the NFL for a long time, including for immediately day one. Whoever picks him, he will be your starting slot next year. His game is very reminiscent to Shakir, only Noel is more explosive, and he showed that he could win at the third level of the field more in college.
Yeah.
So you're getting a better Khalil Shakir here. Christian Kirk is another guy that has a similar skill set. That guy's going to be a very good, like I said, NFL player for a long time. The ball skill is very reliable, doesn't drop it, wins at all 3 levels of the field, and I love that about his game. He showed in the pre-draft testing that he's a great athlete, but in college, in Ames, he showed, again, he could win downtown. When you have the slot that concerns the defense, if he could take you over the top, it changes the constitution of the offense a little bit, right? Or the way that the defense is playing. It opens up opportunities for teammates and spacing and those sorts of things. I like the Jalen Noel idea a lot if he ends up getting there, which I have doubts about, but if he did, absolutely.
Hey, Thor, jumping back to last night for a second, things that kind of surprised me, Booker going as early as he did before Gray Zabel, in fact, number 12 to the Cowboys. I'm looking, we talked about it last weekend at the Auto Show, Thor, feeling the idea of getting edge at 28 for the Kitties. They go D-line, but they go inside to the fellow Buckeye, Tyleik Williams, I believe. Anything that just kind of made you scratch your head, or at least was there any wow factor for you as you analyze all these guys and you, of course, saw how things shook out last night?
Yeah, the two biggest stunners for me, it was every year, I do the live draft shows, the streams, and every year Terry Fontenot, the Atlanta Falcons general manager, does something that makes my eyes bug out of my head. And when I had heard he had traded back up into the first round, my eyes bulged out of my head again. It's a guy who is on the hottest of hot seats in the NFL, who is dipping into the future, a future that he probably will not be a part of in an attempt to save his job. I thought that was pretty rich. This is the reason why you fire those guys before they get an opportunity to commandeer the war room one more time. Of course, they're going to steal from the future to try to save their job. So good luck with that, Terry. Overpaying in this mediocre draft class. You give up your first round pick next year. Kudos to you again. And then the Tyleik Williams one, that was the stunner. Just as far as the pick, at least Terry in his slot, he took an acceptable player at a position of need. No idea what the Lions were doing. No idea at all. If you were going to reach for a player at a position, I would have thought it would have been at edge, their actual position of need. Right. In a scenario where the top 6 guys were off the board at edge, where then it's like, oh, we have to reach up for Nick Scorton or we have to reach up for Landon Jackson. But instead, this tertiary position need, that's what you choose to reach up for. Yeah. I had Tyleik Williams as a late second rounder. Maybe that was a little bit lower than other folks, but mid-second round, probably on most boards, somewhere around there. I don't understand why at that position you pulled it up. And especially in this environment where IDL is the second, in my opinion, the second deepest position group that we have in this draft class next to running back. It is a deeper position group than edge. And edge was their bigger position of need. And by the way, there was edge defenders who fell there that we didn't think would be there. Right? Mike Green, Donovan Ezaraku, guys that are still available now. Yeah. I didn't understand that decision. I will give the contextual benefit of the doubt to Brad Holmes that I've scratched my head at his decisions before, and a lot of them have turned out well for him, vis-a-vis the draft. That was a weird one, though, the Tyleik Williams pick.
All right. I mean, the other big storyline, of course, involves Shedeur Sanders. And now as you look to day 2, where do you think he ends up going? And Cleveland obviously has got need a quarterback, and they have two of the next 4 picks. So where do you see Shedeur ending up here?
Maybe Cleveland should just take both Shedeur and Jalen Milroe. Let's figure it out.
Yeah, may the best man win.
Yeah, exactly. We'll juice our odds of one of those guys hitting. But yeah, Cleveland, you have to assume that they're going to take one of the two, right? And then it just becomes, where does the other one end up falling? But yeah, in my opinion, the NFL is being punitive with Shedeur Sanders. And I think that some of it has to do with his father and not necessarily because, the influence, whatnot, but the specter of if you start slowly and you're a coaching staff that is on the hot seat and now your fan base is calling for your head and they want your team to hire Deion Sanders next off season, I think that's a legitimate concern. Yep. But this one reminds me so much of Geno Smith following his process where it was like, I didn't really get it. Like, that's just a first round guy. You watch him at West Virginia and it's hard to jive it. Very similarly here, Shedeur Sanders is going to hear his name called tonight in the second round. And I think he is going to provide a good long-term starter in the NFL at a cheaper price point.
Well, and part of it too, Thor, do you think there's any, if you're Shedeur, and I can't remember exactly how he phrased it, but basically this is ridiculous. This should never have happened that he's fallen this far. And whatever he says, whatever his dad says, that'll fly by the social media train. But to that end, if you're Shedeur Sanders, can you find any logic in the idea that now that I'm in the second round, there's a chance that I'm not going to a team that has nothing? I actually have the ability. I could be drafted here by a squad that has playoff equity, that has an established offensive line, that has pieces that I can work off of. An 8-win team versus a 3-win team. There are some possibilities here, and maybe with an established head coach, so we're not worried about the Dion thing. Maybe he could end up being in a better spot than if he was drafted first half of last night.
Yeah, certainly possible. Depending on where he goes here. The Cleveland one would be interesting. The Saints, if he gets to 40.
Yep.
That one would be really interesting. Kellen Moore presumably would like a quarterback to build around. Another one. Now, this won't happen. I shouldn't even say this. This is scandalous to even suggest. But let's say that Shadir Sanders got to 43, which is where the San Francisco 49ers picked.
Wow.
What I would do if I was San Francisco is I would take him, and then I would call up the Pittsburgh Steelers and say, hey, you guys interested in Brock Purdy? I wouldn't want to pay Brock Purdy what they're going to end up having to pay him. I would rather pay peanuts for a second-round quarterback, and I'm pretty sure that Shadir Sanders would run Kyle Shanahan's system just as well as Brock Purdy does. So that's something that I would consider. That's not going to happen, but that would be a very good fit for Shadir's skill set.
All right. So as we mentioned, the Browns are on the clock right now at pick 33. They also have 36. If they were to go quarterback, if they go Shadir Sanders and a running back, which order do they need to take them in? Because Houston's not going to take a quarterback. Tennessee's not going to take a quarterback. So they could go running back. Their current starting running back is Jerome Ford. I mean, this is a team that needs running back help. They could go get Travion Henderson or Caleb Johnson with the 33 and then wait on Shadir Sanders at 36. What do you think of that scenario?
I think that depends on if your grades on Shadir Sanders and Jalen Milroe are close or not. Like, how much do you care of your choice between the two? Because the running backs right now, you have more options. Like, let's say a team hops you in line or one of those teams in between you takes a running back. You still have on the board the two Ohio State kids, right? Both really good prospects who should be going here. And you have Caleb Johnson as well. So I think it's just, do you have a real preference between Shadir and Milroe? If you do, you ought to take them with the first one. Mm-hmm. And then even if someone hops in line for one of the running backs in between, you're still going to get a good one. That's how I do. But if you have really close grades on them, that's where you could prioritize the running back of your choice of them and then, wait for the second one.
Well, is this one of those things going to be today, Thor, where you get a running back, everyone's going to get a running back today? Are we going to see what's the total number at? Like 20.5. Is it going to be an over-under proposition on that tonight? It sounds like a lot of guys like that are going to jump off the board here on a Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for any folks out there who like running the ball, the running game in football, turn on the draft tonight. We're going to get a conga line of running backs, and it's going to start early. Those Ohio State kids, Travion and Quinshon Judkins, they will not have to wait long to hear their name. Caleb Johnson's going to hear it a little bit after that. He might even hop one of them in line. Those guys for sure going second round. Will we get another second rounder? Damian Martinez a possibility for that. And then the third round, we're going to get a ton, right? R.J. Harvey, Scadaboo, could DJ Giddens go there, Dylan Sampson, could Devin Neal get in there, Bashal Tutin. There's just a whole bunch of them that are going to start to go then. And then into day three, the conga line is going to continue there because, as you guys know, this is the deepest running back class we've had since at least 2017. And if it's deeper than that one, you got to go way, way back.
Bears have 39. That's a 7th pick tonight. They've got pick 41. That's the 9th choice tonight. One of those two will be a running back, Thor.
Yeah. One of those two will be a running back. They're a possibility for Caleb Johnson. I think, and you have, of course, DeAndre Swift there. And of course, for people out there, Colson Loveland was the pick for the Bears last night. So you have Loveland now. You have Komet. Mm-hmm. It appears they're going to be going more 12 personnel next year. They're going to keep the ball on the ground. It appears a little bit more next year, at least try to. So I totally agree with you, Charch. You have DeAndre Swift, who in this case for Ben Johnson is going to be playing the role of Jahmyr Gibbs. What you're looking for is your David Montgomery. So I think for them, it would be Quinshon Judkins or Caleb Johnson.
Yeah.
Both of whom I think would be good fits there. So yeah, absolutely monitor that for the Bears. I would almost be surprised if they don't come out of one of those first two picks there, 39 and 41, with one of those two guys.
All right. Last thing on the running backs, Houston's up in 2 picks tonight. Joe Mixon's on his final legs. In fact, I really disliked what I saw for the second half of last year from Joe Mixon.
Revival of Dameon Pierce, then.
Yes, that's right. They should just go to Dameon Pierce, but assuming they don't, yes, I think running back can play there as well.
Well, I wanted to kind of switch gears, defensive back, specifically corner. Mm-hmm. Will Johnson, there were differing grades and differing opinions of his overall game in Michigan, but I didn't see a ton of people that had him falling the way he has. You see some news pop, at least to me. Maybe you were already aware of it, Thor. Some medical issues that were giving teams pause. Will Johnson's prospects of going early in the way that you're talking about some of these runners and skill players, Will Johnson still a hot commodity, maybe one of the more talented guys available today?
For sure. Yeah. And the only thing we don't know is what exactly did the team see when they looked into Will Johnson's knee at the medical combine rechecks. And it has to be worse than it was let on for Will Johnson to still be available. That is a top 15 guy just in terms of talent. And I understand, the athletic testing, he probably shouldn't have tested. He moves around better on the field than he did in his testing. If I was him, like I said, I would have shut that thing down. But this is a guy who needs to go into a specific kind of scheme. He would do better in zone. He plays better coming forward with his eyes on the quarterback. Not quite as good trailing with the back, to the quarterback. That's where you see some of those athletic limitations. But if you get him into a system, that behooves his skill set, you're going to get the 2023 Will Johnson. And that for Michigan, that guy was a shutdown corner on the national title winners. And it's a guy that can flip the field for you. He's really good and really clever at jumping passing lanes and flipping the field. So again, what did the medical team say? I didn't say at the Holiday Inn Express last night, so I'm not quite sure. I'm not a doctor, but assuming that you got decent enough news or you're comfortable enough, this is really good value proposition wherever Will Johnson goes.
Transitioning back to the purple, Thor, and thanks again so much for your time. At Thor KU via X Fantasy Life for all analysis. You got a big board of 500 guys. The amount of work you put into that is incredible. Back to the purple. At pick 97, you talked about it, kind of the idea of this. This is a draft where if you're the Falcons and you're leveraging a first round pick next year, maybe the stupidity or just kind of the ill-fated nature of it, because this draft is seen by many as not being as strong, not being as deep in overall high-end talent as maybe next year and drafts to follow. So if you're the Vikings and you just have 3 picks left, are you trying to push ahead a little bit to maybe peak at a top 80 player, or a top 75 player, or are you just going to stick and pick at 97 and kind of go best player available or fill some of those holes that we've talked about, because leveraging future assets to get up higher in this draft might not be worth it from a value perspective?
Yeah, the latter there for sure. I definitely would not be trading up. I definitely would not be dipping into future equity to try to acquire a different pick or move up on tonight. I just feel that would be a mistake. You either sit and pick there, guy falls to you at one of your position groups that you like, interior defensive line will be at the front of that list, but otherwise trade down. I don't care if they don't pick tonight. You only have the 3 other picks. This is your last shot to get any equity whatsoever for the pick if you trade down, and teams could absolutely be looking to get up there right at the end of the night. So then it's not overnight, and then other teams could hop them with a trade with one of those teams at the top of the 4th round. Those would be the 2 that I would do. I would be monitoring the IDL class very closely, and the teams have been aggressive with the IDLs. We are in an aggressive offensive line environment, as we found out last night, and also interior defensive line, like we were talking about before. And so, that latter position being of foremost importance to the Vikings now, or interest heading into tonight. Who is going to be available there? There's a couple guys that I would be interested in. I'm not sure how the Vikings see him or whatever, but CJ West is a guy that I've talked about, interior defensive lineman from Indiana, who's just like he's a stump guy in the middle, interior defensive lineman that you can't move out of the hole. Indiana had the best run defense in the nation on run concepts between the guards last year by far. Like it would drop your jaw to see the yards per carry allowed between the guards of every FBS team, because Indiana was almost a yard better than the next closest team. It's because of CJ West. You cannot move him out of the middle. So that would be I'm looking for a guy there. Obviously, at 97, you're not getting a superstar, or at least someone that you project like that. You're looking for a guy who has one really good utility. CJ West he might be a one-trick pony, but he's got the best trick of that in this class, the run defense.
All right, last thing for Thor Nystrom. For the Vikings at 97, I think cornerback is incredibly important. It's our thinnest position on the entire team, in my opinion. I'm going to hit you with one name of a guy that I'm interested in, a little bit of a project, but somebody that's very productive with amazing ball skills that could be available. And that's Darian Porter from Iowa State. He's a receiver turned cornerback. Has only played 1 year at cornerback, but amazing ball skills because he played receiver for so long. He actually can win contested catches. He's a special team star and a good tackler. Darian Porter interests me from Iowa State at 97. What do you think?
He's a pretty fascinating ball of clay and a pretty fascinating story. And the athletic testing numbers there are utterly ridiculous for a kid who was 6'3", 195. And then in the snaps he took this year, he took 425 this year. He was really good in zone coverage. He showed real flashes in zone coverage. He does not yet have the instant. Of course, there was rawness there. He was late to the position, late development, etc. Man coverage is that's where you sort of cringe with him. He just doesn't have a feel for it yet. But we saw it in zone last year, how that thing plays, and his instincts were getting a lot better at that. He was starting to create some havoc there. You see that with that physical package there, you start dreaming on it a little bit, right? And evaluators are going to be dreaming on that as well. So absolutely. Yeah, I mean, he would be in play. My only question with the Vikings with cornerback, do they have a handshake agreement in place with Asante Samuel Jr.? To announce that thing after the draft? Because if they do, cornerback's not a need. If they don't, then cornerback, of course, is definitely a need. That would go right up there, and arguably even maybe a little bit ahead of IDL at 97. So that obviously we don't know that, but that's an interesting factor.
Thor Nystrom, I will talk to you later today. We'll record Fantasy Football Weekly. People can podcast that through the iHeartRadio app later this afternoon. We'll break down all of the skill position players, of which I'm trying to take. It was such a defense heavy draft. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, about 10 guys that we'll talk through, fantasy relevant guys. We'll break them down in all the landing spots. We'll talk so people can get more, Thor Nystrom. If this has not been enough Thor Nystrom, you're going to be able to get more Thor Nystrom on Fantasy Football Weekly later today. Thank you, my friend.
Looking forward to it. See you soon, Charch.
Absolutely. Thor Nystrom. Again, you can check out his work at fantasylife.com. Nice enough to join us in an extremely busy day. Dude's a hot commodity right now.
Well, and I'll say the fun's not over with Thor. It's going to be a Thorathon tomorrow, noon to 2. Saucy and I, thanks to Heating and Cooling, too. Heatcool2.com. We're doing a noon to 2 show. So it's the Saturday, it's the day 3, it's the kickers, it's the
the kickers.
It's the who's that guy. Sauce and I
there was a kicker last year.
Right, exactly. So Sauce and I were talking about it, like for the first time in like a decade, should we have somebody join us that actually knows about it? Some of these day 3 players, right? He put a list of 500 dudes together. So he's going to join us noon to 2. That's going to be awesome.
For the whole 2 hours?
I believe so.
That's a good get.
That's what Sauce told me, which means naturally I'll have to confirm it. But,
you have to dubious source.
Yes, correct. But he's gonna join us at some point tomorrow. So busy weekend for Thor, putting all that intel onto the airwaves.
Yeah, we've got more draft stuff coming up next. You want to stay tuned between now and the top of the hour.
And the Fan, along with BigDeck.com, want to give you a chance to put $1,000 in your hand with the National Cash Contest. The keyword is win. You might win $1,000 if you go to KFAN.com and enter the key.
You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to TalkSpace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at TalkSpace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at TalkSpace.com.
D-word.
Man.
Brett Blakemore and I doing Video Games Weekly over here during the break.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Are there new games to discuss?
Always.
I'm not a gamer.
Always new games to discuss. If Video Games Weekly were still a thing, we'd be talking about the relaunch of Oblivion, the remaster of Oblivion, which was a huge game 19 years ago that they've remastered and put out. Playing that now. Yeah.
Is Final Fantasy VII still popular?
Shockingly, yes, because they keep remaking it.
Well, that was the last time when that was new.
That was your jam.
The last time I loved it. Yeah, it's an elite game. I think. I don't know. It was 25 years ago, maybe?
It's considered a legendary game. And one of my hot takes on Video Games Weekly was how much I disliked it because it was way too chatty with cutscenes and not enough action. And I felt like I was just watching the gameplay itself instead of me actually doing anything.
Can I tell you, knowing a little bit about you, it's actually not surprising at all that a legendary game that so many people would like.
I don't.
You'd go the other way on.
I know.
You'd go the other way.
Stupidly contrarian often.
What if Matthew Golden had been available? I know it wouldn't have been a Buka, but opening up 9 to noon yesterday, it was like, hey, just a guy that we would like in the draft. Like, we weren't setting it in stone, but you threw a Buka out there. Kid makes plays. Let's add a skill set.
Hey, a Buka could have been a Viking.
He very much could have.
He ended up going at 19 to Tampa Bay.
Right.
Who's to say that at 24, that would not have been the best player available and the Vikings would have gone that way?
Well, and that's what it was really predicated on with you, right? Is the fact that these O-linemen could go early.
Correct.
Those of you that love the Walter Nolan, we mentioned it earlier. I think Kenneth Grant went earlier than I anticipated, but all the same, if some of these guys are gone, to heck with him and worry. Let's build on what's better and add another skill guy. And then the Packers come in at 23 for the first time in 2+ decades and took Golden. I can't stand the team. There's no doubt about that as a Vikings fan, but I would imagine the green and gold that were there, all those quote unquote owners were probably lubed up and outside the Fleet Farm gate and pretty damn happy when they heard that kid's name called.
There was a lot of joy in the room.
Now they got 5 number 1 receivers. What are they going to do with all that?
When the team president for the Packers, when he made the announcement, what's his name? Mark
Murphy.
Mark Murphy. When he made the announcement, he basically mocked himself. And he said, first time in 20 years, we're taking a wide receiver in the first round. And that was a big moment for Brett Blakemore. He was very excited about that. And Matthew Golden goes there. And, back to Donovan Jackson, I believe what Thor said about Donovan Jackson is exactly right. He was the last stop at guard for anybody who belongs anywhere near pick 24.
Yeah.
And so had Donovan Jackson gone 2 picks earlier, whatever, Emeka Egbuka, I might have been right. I may have been proven right on that. In my mind, that's exactly how it would have played out.
And
we'll never know.
It would have been shock and awe. And there would have been moments of us, well, man, we really could have addressed the offensive line but they were all gone. So we just decided to take another weapon and embarrassment of riches, lap of luxury for J.J. McCarthy. But going back to...
I'd have peacocked on the stage last night at U.S. Bank Stadium.
You would have felt pretty good about it.
Oh, God, it would have been fantastic.
You would have mentioned it at least once last night, and possibly it would have come up this morning.
Might have once
It's
or
really
twice.
hard to say.
I'd have retweeted myself several times.
That goes back to what we were talking in the open, though, Charch, is that because this was the last stop, I think it's really smart of Kwesi that he did not, and we don't know exactly if any conversations took place. He mentioned, I think in his post-draft presser last night that, we had some phone calls, and clearly they didn't take heed and didn't jump in on any trades. I'm glad he stuck it and picked at 24. I don't see Donovan Jackson being there in the early 30s if we were sitting there today where the Giants would be at pick 34.
Agreed.
And who's available, what's up. It almost feels like we'd be having these conversations maybe about trading back a second time. I don't know where you see it, Charch, but I think if Donovan Jackson truly was the last stop, and I happen to agree with that, that moving back would have made Donovan Jackson unattainable. He would have been gone before we got another chance.
Yep, and not worth the risk. Right. No. You know, if you've decided we're absolutely building through the trenches, we've got to, you look at the Super Bowl. Eagles won that Super Bowl and destroyed Patrick Mahomes at the line of scrimmage. These games are finally teams seem to really be embracing these. You just have to have command of the line of scrimmage. It was always this way in the old days. You'd build from the lines outward. This team had to get better there. And if that was the last stop, you shouldn't trade down. And especially when you look at what the Giants, you brought this up earlier in the show. One pick later, Houston traded down. They didn't get that much for their trade down with the Giants.
No, pick 99 and then a future third.
Yeah, that's it.
For the swap,
For the swap. And, they moved down a material number of picks. They moved down, I don't know, like nine picks.
9 spots, yeah.
So I think Kwesi got it right with that selection. And bringing together our earlier conversation and this conversation of games and offensive linemen. When Gray Zabel got selected by Seattle, they showed the picture of him and his family and his crew and everybody's all together.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, Gray Zabel has got an upright box of Settlers of Catan.
Oh, really?
The board game sitting right next to him.
Now you're bitter.
Now I'm especially bitter. So now Settlers of Catan is one of the modern day masterpieces in board gaming.
I've heard it's amazing.
It's super fun. The Packers back like 6, 7, 8 years ago when David Bakhtiari was still playing, they were playing Settlers of Catan for big money in the locker room. They had competitive money, like how other people would get together for poker for money. They were playing Settlers of Catan in the Packers locker room. Gray Zabel had Settlers of Catan out. Darren Rovell tweeted, the value of the time on camera for Settlers of Catan, of just being out on the table, was $84,000 of free marketing that Settlers of Catan got, being next to Gray Zabel in that moment.
Well, everything's about endorsements now. So, Settlers of Catan, maybe a couple of bucks to the new Beefeater with the Seattle Seahawks. But did you hear him? Apparently on his post, we're always looking for some kind of quote. And there were a couple last night, like Will Campbell, 4th overall. He's on the stage. Cool, like genuine emotional moment for the LSU kid headed to New England. He actually said, I will fight and die for Drake May.
I know, I love it.
I mean, that's if you want to hear something from your O-lineman, if you're Drake May and you want to stay upright, that's going to pump you up a little bit hearing Will Campbell. But the other one apparently was Gray Zabel on the presser call, the Zoom, whatever, after he's like, I'm about to dive into these bush lights. So Settlers of Catan, take notice. And Bush Light, it's for the farmers, and it's for the Seattle Moving Company and Gray Zabel. So a couple of sponsor opportunities for him.
Yeah, that's fantastic. When we come back, we should probably touch on, sadly, the Adrian Peterson story that evolved over the course of the last 12 hours or so, and some final draft talk as well. Friday Football Feast continues.
You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
In a moment.
I can't wait until tomorrow. 'Cause tomorrow might very well be too late. I can't wait until tomorrow. 'cause tomorrow could never come. I know it could end any minute.
Adrian Peterson is I believe, in my limited interactions, probably 12 interviews over the course of his career going back to his rookie year.
Yeah.
And from what everybody says that knows Adrian Peterson, I think he is a good person who makes bad decisions.
One of the nicest people I've met.
Especially for superstar.
One of the, also the most just emotionally or intellectually immature people that I've ever encountered. So both those things. Super nice.
Charming.
Terrible decisions.
Funny. Makes bad decisions.
Yeah.
Made one last night when Adrian was up on stage with us for an extended interview at US Bank Stadium for the draft party. At the time, I believe, I have no reason to think he wasn't sober for that. But then, unfortunately, later in the evening, ended up getting pulled over for DUI. It was 3 a.m. So yeah,
I
sometime later,
he was all good, sounded good with you guys. But the night is young. I mean, if you're getting pulled over at 3 a.m., you got a lot of time to do some damage, sadly and unfortunately.
Yes, so. There are people, and I've seen this on Twitter. There are people reveling in his misfortunes. I really would encourage you not to think of Adrian that way.
Yeah. It's more tragic than
it is. It is more tragic. And I really do believe that there is a good person, that he is fundamentally a good person whose decision-making process just is broken.
It is.
And we've seen it with many of the key decisions of his life, which is really unfortunate for Adrian. And oftentimes the people around him, unfortunately. One last thing that I want to mention.
Now that we said that,
as we discussed,
you're signing off here, Charch.
A little bit, not forever. We touched on earlier. I'm moving to Utah.
Yeah,
very difficult decision. Love the city that we're moving to, St. George, and just decided I want to move while I'm in my mid-50s, young enough to have some mobility. I can go hiking. I can go camping. I can do the things I want to do while I'm still reasonably young.
Still got that hair.
The beautiful flowing locks. Absolutely. Fantasy Football Weekly is expected to continue. We'll be recording it instead of doing it live like we have been, but it'll still air on Saturdays. I plan to join PA regularly, hopefully, especially during the football season, every week.
Are you kidding me?
Will not be part of the Friday football feast for 3 hours, but maybe there's an opportunity to.
We're going to be badgering the heck out of you.
I hope so. Yeah. I hope so. Hope to be back for key events like the draft party next year as well. Nordo, it's been great working with you. I want to go back to the very beginning. Randy Shaver first put me on the air, and this is 1993, so this goes way, way back. Doug Westerman was nice enough to launch a Saturday morning fantasy show, because back then, if you're anybody old enough to remember what this station sounded like back then, people would just call up with no regard to the topic and just call in, and they would ask whatever they wanted, talk about whatever they wanted, no matter whatever the host was talking about. People would come on the air, and they were asking Dan Barrero their fantasy questions.
The original program.
And Chad Hartman their fantasy questions. And Doug Westerman finally said, okay, this is not good radio. Well, let's do a whole show devoted just to fantasy, and we'll route everybody to Saturday mornings. Dan Cole was the original host of that show with me. And we did it live at Mystic Lake. And Chad Abbott was our engineer for those shows.
Wow.
And we were getting up at the show. It was on from 8 to 10. Chad and I'd be out there at 7 a.m. and he's hooking up equipment and everything else. So Chad and I, we were young men then, very young men then. And Chad's career progression has been amazing to watch. And he is such a good person who has only supported me in everything I've ever wanted to do here. And I just want to spend a moment to thank him specifically.
Yeah, the amount of time, if you think about it, Charch, and there's a ton of emotion in it now as you're making this change, but the indelible mark that you've made on the fan, and as much as I've learned, I haven't worked with you as long as some of these guys have, but I just appreciate the time that in our friendship as it has grown and guidance through the course of time, and just some of our great conversations, time we've spent together at the Combine and elsewhere. It's been terrific getting to know you, and terrific getting to be a part of what you've offered this station for a long time. And I have to admit, there's the emotional side of it. I am also really freaking excited for you, Charch, because I know what maybe over the last 18 months through conversations, just kind of peeking out there, right? And all jokes aside, fifth wheel camper, chains on the tires, driving through the mountains, and just the visuals that I would paint in my raps about such things. I know that this has been a process for you to kind of build this into an executable thing where you are making this move, and the emotion is here, and it should be. But I'm also, to be honest, I'm really excited for you guys, knowing how the gravity of that decision and making that change. I think you guys are going to absolutely love it, and the ability to still stay connected. In those ways. Like, I'm super pumped for you and Roxy, man. I just think, what you've built and what you are moving into at this stage, I think it's going to be awesome. And many of us are probably in some ways envious, I would say, that maybe we think about those things and we don't make that decision. And you are, and it's going to be different, certainly, but you got a family here, and that there's going to be some really exciting times ahead for you. It's awesome.
Thank you for all those kind words. I really appreciate it. It's been an honor to work with you. You act like it's been brief. You and I have been working together now for over a decade.
Yeah.
At least we're very close to that, right?
Think about how short time it is here, though, man. Yeah. How quickly, from feast to feast to feast to feast. Then it's the malaise of the off season, another weird Minnesota season coming to a bitter end. Then it's draft season. Then it's summertime, and we're back at it. And you're right. I mean, it's been, nearly 12 years for me alone. So, and I'm the newest guy here by a mile.
I know, crazy. It's in radio. You never get the continuity that this station has got and it's because of the people and the quality of the people. And it's really unheard of here. And it's because of people like yourself and the people that are coming up next on the very next show. Brandon Molesky, Common Man, Dan Cole. We hope you'll stay tuned to hear both of those. And maybe this means I get to retire on top with my program password championship.
You're taking your trophy.
Taking my trophy and going away. I didn't want to move.
Unbelievable.
But when you win program password, you gotta go out on top. And I think that's going to be my legacy for this station.
The heartfelt sign off followed by "Suck it, I'm a champion."
Thanks, everybody. It's been an honor for over 30 years. Bye bye.
Podcast today's Paul Allen Show, or listen back to previous show and interviews by going to the iHeartRadio app or KFAN.com.
When you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself, talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.